How's it going, guys? Today we're going to be working on another Leetcode question. Question number 3, called the longest substring without repeating characters. It is a very popular question. According to Leetcode, there's over 18,000 upvotes and a bunch of companies that has big tech companies that has given this question out in the past 6 months. Okay, so let's get started. Given a string S, find the length of the longest substring without repeating characters. Okay, that's pretty simple. We look at this string, we see that ABC is the longest substring here. Here we have 5 of the same characters, so any one of those characters is going to be the longest substring, which is what we got. B is B with a length of 1. Here we have 3 notable substrings, PW, and then PKW, and then KEW. And the length of you could also say that each substring is also a substring without repeating characters, but the 2 notable ones are going to be WKE and KEW, and they're both the length of 3. So it doesn't really matter when we just return a number 3. It doesn't really matter which substring it is. So let's get started. If we look at this string, we wanna start with brute force, because that is usually the easiest. If you could skip the brute force, all the power to you. But I'm going to try to help you understand how to get to the best answer possible. So if we're going through brute force, we're going to be going through this string, every substring. We're going to be checking every substring to see if it has any repeating characters, and taking the max of all of these substrings that doesn't have repeating characters, the max length of all these substrings doesn't have repeating characters, will return that answer. Okay, so to loop through each substring, we're gonna need a lot of loops. So let's have the length of the string first, and then res is gonna be our variable that is gonna be our current max length of a substring without repeating characters, and we're going to be updating this over and over again within the loop. Okay, so for I, in range n, so this is our outer for loop. In order to check every substring, we're going to have a changing start and a changing end. Okay, we want to be able to check substrings, let's say ABC, and we also want to be able to check substrings like BCB. That means we're going to have a changing start and a changing end. I'm going to have an outer for loop that facilitates the start, and I'm going to have an inner for loop that facilitates the end. And I'll keep writing, and it'll make more sense the more that you see it. So for I in range n, okay, so this is gonna loop through A, B, C, A, B, blah, 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 blah. And we're just using this example so we can understand the solution better. So for I in range n, we're gonna say for I in range I and n. So we know that the outer loop is gonna facilitate the start, so we're gonna have the inner loop that facilitates the end. So what that means is, if we start at A, our inner loop is gonna allow us to check the substring AB. It's gonna allow us to check the substring AA, and then AB, and then AC, and then ABAC. ABCA. God damn it. ABCA, and then ABCAB, so on and so forth. And after we're done the first iteration on the other loop, we move to B, and then we have a new set of substrings, which is, we go again BB, and then BC, and then BCA. So the N is going to be, the inner loop is going to be changing the N, and the outer loop is going to be changing the start. That's how we're going to go through all our substrings, okay? And we're just going to have some helper function called check. This check, all it's going to do is it takes in a substring, and then it spits back out true or false if there are repeating characters, okay? So say if it takes in ABCA, it's going to give us true because there is a repeating A in there. If it takes in ABC, then it's gonna tell us sorry, if it takes an ABCA, it's going to be false because there's a repeating character. If it takes an ABC, there's no repeating character, so it's going to be true. Whenever this is true, we want to be updating our res. Right, and we're going to take the max of the old res, right? So this is always a repeating, ever changing max length that we're checking all the time, and we're going to take the max of the old substring that we checked, and we're going to take with that and the length of the current substring we're on, which is really just the end minus start plus 1, and we're going to return res at the end of the day. Finally, we're going to write our check function. There's a lot of ways to do this. What we're going to do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Unicode. Since sorry, I did not mention this, S has letters, digits, symbols, and spaces. So Unicode would be useful here. If you don't know Unicode, Google it up. All it means is every letter, every digit, every symbol, every space represents a certain number, and that number is unique and is in between 0 and 128, and we're going to use that to check if there are any repeating characters. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have an array of length 128, and then every single time a certain character, when it gets changed into Unicode, it's going to represent some number in between 0 and 128, and I'm going to add in that index for chars, I'm going to add 1 to it. I'm going to add 1 every single time that we see that character or number or symbols, okay? And any time that it's more than 1, we're just going to return false, because that means that substring is going to, it does have a repeat in it, okay? And whenever that, once we're done looping through the substring, if it's never, if we never hit a count of more than 1, then we just return true, okay? Simple enough. So we have chars, and then we're gonna loop through our, substring, and remember this is the index, so we got a +1 to make it look like the length, and we see that we're gonna have C equals so this is gonna be our character, okay, and the index of this character, which is turned into Unicode, that's what ORD means. We're gonna add a count to it, and every single time when we're doing this loop, if the count of this character is more than 1, then we return false, because we know that there's a repeat now. If this loop executes, that means there are no duplicates and it is good to go, and we update res, okay? Simple enough. Run code, works, submit code. Submit code, it is very slow. It probably won't go through, but this does work. So let's try to figure out what the time complexity on this thing is. So we have a double for loop, okay? Each of them are looping I amount of times, or the strength amount of times, string amount of times. And within this, we're also looping through the substring itself, okay? So this is n cubed, okay? Because we have a triple for loop, and each of them loop n amount of times, okay? So our worst case is going to be n cubed, okay? And to fix this, there's one thing that you need to remember here, okay? One thing that you need to, when we're looking at this, is we to make this faster, you need to realize that we don't need to, first of all, we don't need a triple for loop. We can do it in one loop, and how we do that is we need to realize that as we're going down a string, this string, all we really care about are substrings that have no repeats. Okay, what this does is it checks every substring, even if we already checked this a substring that had a repeat. So instead of checking every single substring, we're just gonna check. We're just gonna almost move our solution along the string if we ever do see a repeat. So let's say we use this as an example, right? So we check P is good, we check PW is good, and then we see PWW. Okay, that's not good. Our substring is currently the length of 2 at most, and every single time we see a repeat, we're gonna move our solution along. So we're gonna cut our solution up until all the way up until a repeating character, right? So when we were at PW and then we go to PWW, we say, hey, that's a repeating character, let's cut off the last W. So we're gonna cut off all the way up until the last W. So now our new substring is gonna be W, okay? Our new substring is gonna be W, and then we can carry along WKE, and then we're gonna hit W again. We're gonna cut off the last repeating character, which is W, and then we have KW. And every single time we cut off a certain character, we record the length of the substring. And while we record the length of the substring, we're also taking the max of the last substring that we have and the current substring that I have. Okay. In this case, we only ever need to go through the array once. Okay. So let's get started. And this is actually a very popular algorithm called the sliding window, where we have a moving left and a moving right depending on the conditions we have. Don't worry if it's hard to follow. It is not an easy solution for people that doesn't know about sliding window. So again, we're gonna have our chars. Okay, we're gonna have our Unicode. And we're going to have our left equals right equals 0. Okay, so this is what's going to be moving. This is what's going to go from, our left is going to move every single time we see a repeating character in our new substring. And our right is going to move every single time we loop through it. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be our variable that we're going to be repeating every time. So while while right is less than length of s, okay, say n is equal to length of s. So while right is less than n, okay, we're going to have our character on the right, and then we're going to change this into a Unicode, and we're going to add a count of 1, okay? And if this count of 1 is ever repeated, right? So this is, we're already going through the string. If this is ever repeated, then we move our left, as I mentioned before, and we move our left, and we're going to take a count out of the array, because we want to make a new string, a new substring, right? So right here, so really this array right here is gonna hold, it's as if it's gonna represent our moving string, right? Every single time. So say if we had PW, we have a count of P, we have a count of W, and then we have a count of W twice when we hit the third character. That's when we take it out and we say that, okay, we only have a count of W once and we're going to have no P because this is going to be a new substring, okay? So we take that out. We're also going to move left once, and then finally we have to update our res once we're done the loop. And it's going to be the old res equals the length, which is just right minus left plus 1. And then right, we got to move the right once every single time we've done the loop. And then we return res. Okay, run the code. It should work. Submit. Oh, wrong answer. What is going on here? Let me check what's going on here. So the mistake we made here was this is supposed to be L, not R, because when it is R, we're not taking away account out of the right character, we're taking account out of the left character. So if we submit, it should be fine now. So that's basically it. I think in future videos I'm just gonna spend more time on the more optimized solution. I think the videos go a bit too long if I try to go through the brute force all the way up to the optimized solution and have to rush through the optimized solution. So thank you for watching. See you in the next video.